to look at some of the world's most important inventions. But we're not going to talk about perfect plans or brilliant blueprints. Nope, we're diving into the chaotic, surprising, and downright accidental stories behind them. Because, as it turns out, sometimes the best progress isn't planned at all.
So, let's start by tackling a huge myth, this idea that innovation just happens in a straight line.
You know, we have this picture in our heads of what innovation looks like, right? A genius has a clear goal and just marches straight towards a breakthrough. But the reality? Oh, it's so much messier than that. It's full of twists and turns, and honestly, it's a lot more interesting.
And the scale of this messy reality is, well, it's staggering. Experts actually estimate that somewhere between 30 and 50% of all scientific discoveries happen in some way by complete accident. Let's look at a couple of classic examples.
All right, our first case file. This one takes us back to World War II, where an engineer working on military tech made a, let's just say, a very peculiar and sticky observation.
So picture this. The year is 1945. An engineer named Percy Spencer is working for the Raytheon Corporation, and his job is to improve magnetrons. These were these high-powered tubes that were basically the heart of the Allied radar systems. His goal was super clear: make the radar better.
But one day, while he's standing near an active magnetron, he notices something odd. The peanut cluster candy bar he had in his pocket had turned into this complete, gooey mess. It wasn't a hot day, so he knew something else was going on. It turns out the microwaves from the tube had cooked it right there in his pocket.
And this just perfectly shows the journey from a random accident to a world-changing invention. Spencer didn't just shrug it off. He immediately tested his idea with popcorn and then an egg. Raytheon patented the whole process, and by 1947, they released the very first commercial microwave. It was called the Radar Range, and it was an absolute beast. It weighed 750 pounds and cost about $5,000. But by 1975, a much smaller, affordable version was in kitchens everywhere.
Okay, so our next story builds on this exact same theme. It involves an electrical engineer, a teeny-tiny component, and a simple little mistake that would end up saving countless lives.
So back in 1956, there was an engineering professor named Wilson Greatbatch, and he was trying to build something called an oscillator. His goal was pretty specific: create a device that could listen to and record the very faint sounds of a human heartbeat.
While he was putting the circuit together, he reached into a box for a part, for a specific resistor, but he accidentally pulled out the wrong one. It was 10 times stronger than what he needed. Just a simple, easy-to-make mistake.
And when he turned it on, it didn't record any sound. Instead, the circuit started putting out this steady, precise electrical pulse. It was perfectly mimicking the rhythm of a healthy heart. Greatbatch realized instantly what he had. He hadn't built a recorder, he just built the world's first reliable, implantable pacemaker.
So, a melted candy bar, the wrong resistor, it all sounds like just dumb luck, right? Well, the answer to that is a hard no. There's something else going on here.
You know, the secret ingredient was actually explained perfectly by the scientist Louis Pasteur way back in 1854. Chance isn't enough. You have to be prepared to see it, to understand what it means, and then to act on it.
There's a name for this phenomenon. It's called serendipity. And it's not just a lucky break. It's actually a three-step process. First, an unexpected thing happens. Second, someone recognizes it has potential. And third, they act on it. If you miss any of those steps, an accident is just, well, it's just an accident.
So what does a prepared mind actually look like? Well, first, it has deep knowledge and experience, which lets it see why some random anomaly is a big deal. Second, it's open to the unexpected. It doesn't just write off a mistake as a failure. And finally, it has this deep curiosity to ask, wait, why did that happen? And to explore what it could mean.
And this leads to a really fascinating question. Can you engineer luck? Well, a lot of modern organizations think you can. They're actually designing their workplaces to make these happy accidents happen more often. Let's take a look at a company like Pixar. When Steve Jobs helped to design their main campus, he was apparently obsessed with creating what he called casual collisions. Instead of putting everyone in separate buildings, he designed the whole place around this huge central atrium. It had the mailboxes, the cafe, even the only restrooms. This literally forced animators, computer scientists, and writers to bump into each other all day long, sparking conversations and ideas that just would never happen otherwise.
And that kind of brings us to the big takeaway here. The next great breakthrough, whether it's in a lab or in your own life, it might not come from some perfect step-by-step plan. It might actually come from a mistake. So the real question is, what mistake is just waiting to become your next great idea?
Thanks for watching.